Hello everyone, welcome in. This is section 3.2, understand how silhouette influences a character's image in Chyan's Coloso class, drawing and coloring anime style characters. So welcome in guys, thank you so much for your guys' patience. It's been a little bit, I've been through a rough string recently. I actually just went through a pretty severe long-term relationship. If you guys want me to talk more about that kind of content, I'm more than happy to and kind of express different types and my thoughts and reflections on it. But for now, I'll just leave it at that. My move is just about done. I actually just need to clean out the place and pray that I get my security deposit back. Also, so if my audio sounds a little weird, it's because I'm at my new setup and I'm still kind of getting adjusted to the audio of this place as well as if there's any wolves howling out. I live kind of close to a field, so there might be some around there. In any case, thank you guys again for your patience as I work my way back into my content. And remember that you can always keep in tune for future uploads as well, just by subscribing, notification bell, all that jazz, if that's your kind of thing. But in any case, this was section 3.2. Honestly, a very visual-based lecture. It was super cool watching Chyan work through his design process with different characters and how you can influence their silhouette depending on their elements that you tie in with the character composition and how you design it. Really cool stuff. I suggest if you guys are following along in the class to just watch through. And just spend some time watching as he creates it and kind of take note of the important considerations he makes while he's designing it. He does mention that a lot of this stuff kind of ends up becoming like second nature as you draw on more. He recommends though that you study up on it and make sure you really internalize it. That way you don't really have to essentially guess while you're working through that stuff. In any case, getting into the notes today, the 3 points of perspective in an illustration are going to be the point, the line, and the plane, and this is in regards to the silhouette. In terms of the perspective of the illustration, not to be confused with other perspective that we've considered and gone through in this course. The point's going to be any point of focus on the character in terms of the silhouette. The line is going to be what induces that focus, so how those points kind of transition around the character and the silhouette. And then the plane itself, which is going to be like the actual silhouette and the impression that it gives you overall. The character silhouette is determined by all aspects of the character and how they are portrayed. So keep in mind pretty much everything is going to be relating to your silhouette and how you design your character. Here is the meat of the lecture, which is pretty much just the basic or main silhouette shapes that you really should internalize, which are going to be mainly the triangle, diamond, and 8-shaped. He does talk about a couple others in that they can pretty much all vary depending on both their shape itself, so transforming these different silhouette shapes as well as different types of ones. They're all polygonal for the most part. But for most professional or casual work that you do, they're going to revolve around these 3 types of silhouette shapes. The first being the triangle, which has a lot of balance on the bottom, assuming that it's a right side up triangle. So you've got your 2 legs on the bottom and the point at the top. What this does is it implies stability at the bottom because you have 2 really big points or sweeping motion at the bottom of your character composition, which creates a calm impression because of that increased stability. An inverted triangle, however, is going to have an energetic impression and is more dynamic because there's more elements at the top and generally expresses the character a lot better. The diamond shape, which is often used for mobile game portraits. For most of your gacha games, they're going to pretty much revolve around character portraits in this style. It generally has a fancier impression and it looks more stabilized and dynamic. The best way that Chyan kind of words this is that it's essentially combinations literally of the right side up and the upside down triangle. Because of that, it sort of gives you the best of both worlds. However, to tie in both of those aspects, you really need a center point, which is where the gaze is going to spread out from. So keep in mind, if you are going to do this, there has to be a lot of elements or a lot of gaze focused towards the center, so that way there's not too much imbalance on the top or the bottom. And then finally, the 8-shaped. This one's a little bit more particular, but it's generally used for strong elements, which exist both at the top and bottom of the composition. And unlike the diamond, it implies a large stature instead of the sort of fancier qualities that come from having both triangles essentially in the main silhouette. 8-shaped is generally what you see for like boss compositions. I'm thinking a lot of Genshin Impact right now, but a lot of Raiden and a lot of the Gnosis holders within the game are going to be pretty much have splash art of this. The 8-shaped because it implies a lot of power and a lot of stature within the figure. The only exception being the new one that just came out. I don't remember her name, I'll just put a picture on her, but her splash art's a little bit more different, but it still implies this 8-shaped. Generally, it's called the 8-shaped because you have this sweeping element like you do with the right side up triangle at the bottom, But because it implies a large statue, you normally have something behind the character that sort of gives almost like a holy or like a statue of respect in terms of the character. So you'll see a lot of like big outlines behind the character, maybe even like a halo. That's where sort of this 8-shaped comes in, because the gaze kind of sweeps back and forth between the top and bottom elements. Next, Chyan really talks about the second impression of the silhouette, or what else can influence and change the aspects of these main silhouette shapes. The main takeaway you really need to know is the outline, which is that the main silhouette impression can alter depending on the weight of the shape and the sharpness/roundness of the edges. So if we're talking about literal shapes of the silhouette here, depending on how you balance them, the outline can sort of change that. And he talks a little bit more about it, but if you think like we can take this 8-shaped, and if it's rounded, it sort of has a more softer impression with a large stature, or we could sharpen the edges of that 8, have a lot of pointy ends sticking out of it, and suddenly that large stature is also going to look a little bit more intimidating as well. That's where this impression of the outline really comes in for the silhouette. And then finally, to round off the lecture, the rest of the lecture was really spent observing him as he takes essentially the same base character and changes the different types of silhouettes using sub-elements that he designs onto the character to change the impression of the character. So it's really, really cool stuff. Like I mentioned earlier, highly suggest watching, but in any case, here are the main takeaways for his work process through that. The first is to use intention to draw your weaknesses and compare them to your strengths, and see if your impression was made, which is going to relate to the self-assigned homework here at the bottom. Next is to consider the focal point from the silhouette, and then add more key elements there and use surrounding elements from the rest of the silhouette to guide the gaze. So if you think, for example, like the diamond, you're going to have this sort of focal point right towards the center. You can place the focal point, maybe you have like a huge like decal piece, some sort of jewelry on the character towards like a breastplate or something like that, that really shows and shines the focal point of the character. And then you can design the different sub-elements of like their armor, maybe abilities, something like that, to help sort of draw the gaze in and draw it inwards towards that center. And really you want to design the sub-elements so that they're constantly pushing back towards that focal point, because that focal point is going to be the strength of your composition in terms of the character silhouette. I mentioned a little bit of this, but skin and exposure tends to be a natural gaze. So large highlights, skin mentioned as well, work really, really well as a natural gaze. So keep that in mind as you're designing different costumes and apparel for your characters. Now, in terms of shapes and silhouette, short will generally apply to round and cute aspects of the character, and vice versa for sharper and more mature sort of aspects of the character. And that includes objects as well. So if you think like this super short chibi character has like a super sharp, pointy, demonic blade, it's going to look a little bit contradictory, versus if they have this sort of sword that's just decorated with butterflies, and it changes the shape of that silhouette. So keep that in mind. Make sure that there's cohesion between elements, or if you choose to have contradictory elements, they either make sense canonically or help contribute to the silhouette of the shape overall. This one was a little bit more subtle, and he talks about it very briefly, but less space between elements implies cute and vice versa as well. So for a lot of his character portraits that he drew for a more cute impression and a more cute silhouette, he drew in the sub-elements so that there wasn't a lot of breathing room between the sub-elements in terms of the compositional space of the character silhouette. Versus if you want sort of a more intimidating or more mature statue, you want to spread out those elements and really show off the character's length and size. And then finally, he goes into a little bit more about framing, and he uses this example of like black boxes or letter boxes in movies, but you can cut off the field of view or different parts of the characters, which can create a different feel or focus of the composition. So I think for his last example, he took the cute character that he designed in the silhouette, and he drew a basic compositional sketch of it, and he pretty much zoomed into the character essentially and drew the composition so that there was parts of the character's top and bottom that were cut off, and because of that it drew in a lot of the sub elements to the character. So like said, that less space there implies more of a cute stature for the character, which is what he was going for. So not only did he design the silhouette to be cute, but he also designed the composition around that silhouette to help complement that same feel that the silhouette gave. So you can play around with different framings of the characters or different poses of the character within your composition, which we talked about in the previous sections on how to design solid and guiding compositions. So quick summary and rundown of everything we've gone over today. You want to know and understand each basic silhouette shape and their influence on both the character and composition of an illustration. You want to use a character's design aspects to help sell the impression made through that silhouette. And then knowing design and illustration choices can help further the impression made from the silhouette as well. And then the self-assigned homework is pretty much what Chyan did the entire lecture, which is using a base character, you want to sketch 2 to 3 designs for the character that change the overall silhouette using aspects of their wardrobe or their kit. Anything of their sub-elements canonically that you can draw or stylize to help sell that impression that you're trying to make, and then try to change those impressions that you make using the same character, so that way you have a stable base to work from, and you really know that you're selling the impression of the character through their silhouette, not through different aspects that you might be inadvertently changing. And then an extra that he did at the end, which was in relation to this aspect of the lecture, you can draw each design into a composition using the same principles for their silhouette. Like said, if you're drawing a cute character, Chyan drew the character up close in composition. That way there's a lot less space between the sub-elements, and that helps complement the impression of the silhouette. You can try doing that with different silhouettes as well, and just change the composition sketch and just see how that changes the influence of the feel. So overall, that was section 3.2. Like I said, I'm still working a little bit more back into these lecture reviews again, and I really appreciate your guys' support while I've been gone. You can always check out my Discord server as well. I've been active in there, just chatting every now and then, and it's really nice to see familiar faces in there, as well as your guys' art. Your guys' art is way better than mine, for one. And second of all, it's really, really cool seeing that my lectures are helping people and seeing people implement the practices of these lecture reviews into their work. So really great stuff, and I'm glad to be of a resource and see it play out for different people's art as well. So feel free to join the Discord. The link is down in the description, as well as in my other videos as well. Besides my Discord, you can also check out my socials, which I'll link around the screen here for you guys to check out. If you guys want to follow me on any other platforms for different avenues of my content or different types of content as I slowly start working on those as well as any dumb rambles or other content that I decide to work through. In any case, thank you guys so much for joining into this lecture review. I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be working through some more content for you guys coming through the pipeline. So really great stuff. And as always, I hope to see you guys in the next lecture review regarding Chyan's Coloso course. I hope you guys have a good day. Make sure to take it easy.